Yes, I'm going to start the session now. Welcome once again. Thank you very much for your valuable time to join me today for this webinar on curriculum design by using the principles of outcomes-based education. This is going to be a 75 minutes session, and then we can have question answers in between anytime. Please keep writing your questions in the question box. Whenever time permits, I will access those questions and try to answer your questions. Essentially, this is a part of the full FDP which I deliver many times at the campuses these days. And I will try to use these 75 minutes to convey as many concepts as possible. These are the ideas that I have designed over a period of last a few years. Using the experiences I have had by implementing during the implementation of Inpods technology at several universities and the institutions, autonomous colleges across the country, and also by referring to certain research that I have read, um, and that this is the kind of a kind of session that I have designed primarily to convey the ideas of curriculum designing using the principles of outcomes based education. I'm going to, I've skipped a couple of slides before because those are related to my full FDB program. So I'm just skipping those slides, and now I'm about to begin the session now. Initially, I will cover quickly the ideas of quality assurance in higher education. Then we will go to the main topic. Essentially, the idea of the quality assurance has originated in the field of manufacturing long back, and they realized that the quality control, which was their earlier way of controlling the quality, they realized that that's not enough, foolproof. They must look at the of the processes around the product before the product is getting manufactured or produced. Unless and until they have a control over those processes, the quality of the product cannot be ensured. And when they realized that, the concept of quality assurance emerged. And that is when this concept of quality assurance it has become kind of widespread, and it became applicable to other fields of the work, such as higher education. So this is how it has evolved, and now it is called as quality management. It's a much bigger concept now, and you must have heard about total quality management, Toyota principles, and they fall into this larger sphere of that in kind of embraces the whole process of quality assurance and quality control. Now, just like the way the field of manufacturing has evolved from quality control of their products to quality assurance of the processes that produce the products, similar to that, when if we start applying this concept to higher education, we have to look at what the products or the tools of the higher education that we have to consider, because there are many such things like products or the tools that we use or we produce every day, every semester, or every term, every year, or whenever there is a new program being designed. Certain processes have to be in place, and these processes will give us the desired output that is a product of this whole process. So even in the case of higher education, there could be some products which we have to identify first, and then we can talk about the processes around that, and then we can talk about the quality assurance of those processes. So if you look at the process of higher education, it can be defined as systematic series of steps, activities, and the methods employed by education institutions to facilitate the learning and development of students pursuing the advanced knowledge and skills. It can be further described as it encompasses aspects such as curriculum design, instructions, assessments, students, support system, and quality assurance measures to ensure that students receive a comprehensive and meaningful educational experience leading to recognized academic credentials such as degrees or certifications. This could be the description of the process in higher education. So now if we start identifying what the tools and the products of higher education processes are, it could be a program. If it is a completely new program, if you are going to design, that itself could be a product. It could be a tool if you are not agreeing with the term here as product. You may call it as tool also, if or it can be anything else that is in your mind. It doesn't matter. For the sake of convenience, I'll call it as tools, and the products also. So courses itself could be a product because you write a book, you design design a course out of it, and that is why it can be called as a product. Instructions. So this is my instruction design to convey my ideas to you. And so this is my product. This is the way I have designed my instructions. Course plan could be a product. Your activities that you design, like projects, labs, other such curricular activities or extracurricular activities, those could be the products. Questions also could be called as products because you think about how to ask a question. What could be the way of asking that question? So you think about it and your mind produces a question, and that's why it is a product of a teacher. So for today's session, there could be multiple products of higher education. However, for today's topic of using outcome-based education principles for curriculum design, I'm going to use these as some of the examples of the products. So it would be a program, curriculum, instructions, questions, or outcomes analysis methodology also could be a product. Now, when I have written in the brackets, it could be a framework of or a template. So imagine that in your institute there is a central office that is given the mandate of designing these frameworks, which could be used by your departments and the program coordinators, program designers, or your board of studies, right? They can take these templates and kind of localize it for the program that they are going to design or the program that they are going to revise over a period of time. Though I'm talking about the existing programs. So this could be a template that can be defined at the global level. This template could be taken by various authorities in your institution and they can localize it to add the variations or rather the local requirements of that program, and this template could be used a little bit customized for making sure that it is applicable to their programs. So that is why, but however, if there is a template or a framework defined by you at the global level, the variations in your process are going to be controlled a lot. So that's also another principle of quality assurance, that is to ensure that the variations are reduced in your processes. Likewise, curriculum designing also could be driven by some kind of framework or template defined at the top level, and then it can be used by these program designers in various departments to make it applicable to their programs, specifics of their programs. Likewise, instructions, and there could be a process of designing instruction. There could be a process of designing questions also, right? So this is how the products could be produced by the various stakeholders in your institution. If something that probably you might be thinking that is missing is the student themselves could not be called as a product, uh, but their mind, shaping their mind is something that we can talk about. But that itself is again is not the product itself. Even if we talk about the mind of the student, that is not the product itself. It is essentially the reflection of the soundness of all these processes and the products that you produce to design or the create that reflection into the minds of the students. So it all depends on how sound your process is, how consistently you are producing these products, like questions, instructions, curriculum, and the program design itself is going to leave that impression, reflection on their minds. And that is why that itself directly is not a product, in my opinion. So if you focus on the process, it will give you a better product, consistent quality, and it will obviously result into better reflections on the student's mind. What is the relationship of reflections with the program outcomes? This is a question for all of you. You may answer this, in your answer question box that is accessible to you. Let me check whether there are any answers already. In the meantime, there is a question by Professor Pradhan. Which methodology is to use analyze the performance of the students? We'll come to that. This question can be addressed little later. So there are no answers yet to this question, which is there on your screen. Employability is no. Actually, the question is like this. Uh, the question is, what is the relationship of reflections with program outcomes? So I'm talking about the reflections that we just talked about. These are the reflections. So these products are going to leave reflections on the minds of the students. I'm talking about these reflections. So the question is, what is the relationship of these reflections with the program outcomes? Fine. So let me go ahead and explain this further. So this is what we have just discussed. So reflections are actually the outcomes of your educational processes, right? We have looked at the processes. Your processes are going to give you the products like instructions or questions, right? Or activities. And these reflections are the outcomes of your processes. These are the reflections here, right, on the minds of the students. And these, if you start quantifying those, qualitatively or quantitatively, you will have to name those, identify what those reflections are, and hence those could be nothing but the outcomes of your educational process, right? So what you're actually looking at in the minds of the student is the reflection, and these reflections has a direct relationship, or those could be defined as the outcomes of your educational process, and those are nothing but actually the program level outcomes, which students will achieve by the end of their graduation or undergraduation process. So if you then have to ensure that the quality of those reflections are at the desired levels, then again we have to think about how to assure that you will always see certain number of students achieving those outcomes with a higher degree of proficiency. And you know that 100% students cannot be in that box of high performing students. There will be some spread. There could be some medium level performers, and there could be some slow learners or lower performers. So, however, this percentage of the students that is those are passing out of your campus every year, then what is the percentage of the students who are on the right side of the spectrum is something that you have to assure. And to assure that percentage of the students, you have to start focusing on the products, and then subsequently to your focus will have to be on the processes that produce those products. And that is the idea. So quality assurance of higher educational process is nothing but assurance of the reflections, and reflections are nothing but the program outcomes. So that is where that is how we start defining the program outcomes for any program It could be a new program, or if you want to revise and kind of revive your whole program designing of the existing programs, this could be the start of defining or the revising your programs. You start with the right set of program outcomes, and these programs outcomes are nothing but the reflections of your products that you produce every day or periodically. So this is the processes. Again, I want to re-emphasize that we have to identify the processes, and then we have to assure those execution of those processes consistently well, and also continuously improve all those processes by using the feedback that is given by various data points that you collect, um, and that is where the outcomes analysis comes in picture. But if you have a right way of measuring the success of the students or their learning outcomes, then that data could be your feedback to your process of rather the process of quality assurance. And then these processes around program designing or curriculum design, instruction design, questions, outcomes, these will get influenced by the feedback that is being received by you from the data that you collect over a period of time. And that is how the continuous improvement of these processes is to be triggered. So what these could be the tools of your quality assurance. There could be various frameworks, there could be rubrics, there could be methodology, there could be some software technology that you will have to use for the data analysis. There could be some rubrics for you to measure the performance, objectively, a little and less subjectively. There could be frameworks, as we mentioned, as we discussed, for your even for designing the instructions or designing the questions, designing the activities, and these frameworks could be used by various stakeholders to use those and apply those in their programs. So that's how your quality assurance practices could be implemented using a central office and then spread over to the entire organization. This is a little bit about what is quality in education. So generally, the thought leaders in the field of education, they say that there are 5 dimensions of quality: learner, environment, content, process, and outcomes. This could be the 5 dimensions that can be used by, and you will find that these are consistently used by the policymakers and those who draft the manuals for various accreditations. You will always find that there is a reference to these 5 dimensions in your accreditation manuals or any other policies that you come across with. It is not only applicable to our country, but you will find this reference is being taken as is by even if you look at accreditation manuals of Japan, Germany, UK, America, or even Australia. You'll find that these 5 dimensions are very boldly visible there. However, the out of the five, 4 dimensions points towards the learner, and that is why it is called as learner-centric education. It is also kind of already kind of I am going to use these quotes by various ancient philosophers and also Indian philosophy, ancient Indian philosophy. They all point to the same thing. Socrates says that I cannot teach anybody anything, I can only make them think. Galileo said, you cannot teach people anything, you can only help them discover it within themselves. Einstein said, I never teach my pupils, I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn. And this is what Vedas say: the guru can only show the way, the disciples himself or herself must walk it. Any questions? Dr. Vasagan says, is there any difference between reflection outcomes? Absolutely not. That's exactly what I was. Probably your question is little, you asked this little earlier, and then later on, probably I must have already explained this to you, right? Reflections are nothing but the outcomes, right? Any other questions by anyone else? Okay, I'll go ahead. What skills will become more important in the years to come for the students to get the jobs? This is a question to all of you. You can think about it. Actually, there are many external impacts that are happening constantly on the process of higher education. And currently, as you know, artificial intelligence is the biggest, that is a largest and huge impact that is happening currently on the field of education generally, right? However, there are many other things that are rapidly changing outside of the institution, and many thought leaders say that we are preparing the students for the problems of the jobs that don't exist today. Almost like 40 to 50% of what they learn is going to obsolete by the time they graduate out of 3 or 4 years of undergraduation program. Unemployability of the student is already a problem, right? And if nothing is done, nothing is changed, it is going to be a bigger problem. Mindset of the student is also changing a lot. Those who are born 2 to 5 years ago are going to enter the higher education after almost like 15 years or so, and you can then imagine what could be the mindset these students will carry at that time, right? Their attention span is going down. Their exposure to the technology is going up every day, and they cannot simply sit in the classroom, and we cannot have that kind of traditional way of teaching them in the classroom. There will have to be a totally different way of teaching these kind of students. The confusions will go up because there are so many things happening around them. So many fields are emerging. They're already confused with the the kind of variations that we have today, and in the future it is going to grow further. The data is exploding. A huge amount of new information is getting generated every day, and that is also getting, you cannot just have a single book which can be used for years to deliver the content or the disciplinary knowledge to the students, because that kind of information is not going to last longer. The lifespan of that knowledge is going to reduce a lot, and domains are emerging, right? So again, uh, institutions will have to cope up with designing new programs or changing their programs very rapidly, and uncertainty that happens, the education cannot remain current. So the gap will increase. So that is what is already sensed by many educators, right, all across the globe, and they have started defining this. They are doing a lot of research on this problem, and they are giving some kind of direction to what could be the future. And one of such relevant um, kind of information that I found is something that is I'm sharing right now. So Dr. Rogers says that sometime in around 18th century it was an agricultural age, where the that was the first time when you found that there was some kind of labor class that got generated. They started working in the field of the fields, and they primarily were using their body to deliver those labor, right? So that was their more of psychomotor skills were being used by them. When the industry age occurred, it's not only the labor, uh, the social mobility was not only related to the labor class, but also the kind of the concept of supervisor or manager emerged, and then managing the labor became the skill in the industry age. In the today, it is said that we are into information age, and now you can see that it is essentially the knowledge workers are different, and the the working class that you when we when the it used to be there in industry age or agriculture age. Now in managing these knowledge workers is again becoming a difficult skill to have, and that is primarily the social mobility. And what is said is that around 10 to 15 years from now, innovation age will kind of emerge, and the social mobility will be seen in a way that the people who are working in the organizations will have to be extremely good at innovations, teamwork, creativity, their imagination, and there has to be weight. They will have to have a good skill of continuous learning. So essentially, it is like communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. These four C's are going to become more critical, plus the lifelong learning abilities. So, what Roger believes is that, to prepare the students for the innovation age, he believes that traditional classroom teaching will have to go and experiential learning will have to set in. We have to throw the students into messy situations and experiences to give them a sense of how to innovate, to find solutions to the problems. That's how he kind of, describes this issue. If you look at ancient Indian philosophy, you'll find these references. A student gets a quarter of knowledge from the teacher, probably that happens in the classroom. A quarter by own intelligence, it is self-study. Quarter from the fellow students, which is kind of, which can happen in group activities or projects, and a quarter in the due course of time. That is when the lifelong learning is used by the students and all of us, right? So that is where the context of the research orientation comes in picture. Essentially, by virtue of the teachers being asked to do the research, is primarily to prepare them for being able to deliver those four C's, and helping the students become the lifelong learners. Because the process of research is it goes through formulation of the research problem and formulation of theories and solution parameters. How the solution will be evaluated, whether it is a right fit or not, what the pros and cons are, advantages and disadvantages are, how will you measure that, success criteria, right? So that is the formulation of that. Compiling the originality proof of the research. You will have to think critically, and make sure that the your research is original. You will have to define many methodologies, right? You'll have to identify the instruments for your research. So that is again your analytical abilities are essentially used here. Discussion of practical solutions. So it comes to it triggers the collaboration, communication among the peers or somebody outside of your domain, because you may have to bring in various aspects, very different perspectives into your research, and then you finally put your conclusions and recommendations for others who are going to use your research for their some kind of use. So this prepares a teacher as a person who has learned these skills: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity, and now becomes a right person for teaching these skills to the students. So that is one of the biggest advantage of this orientation of research, uh, becoming a mandatory for the teachers. This could be, you can see this example of how the research learning outcomes are kind of defined here. You'll find that that is exactly what is expected. That is, in the sense, these four C's and essentially the lifelong learning. If you have any questions, please keep writing those. I'll try to answer those whenever possible. Dr. Reddy says that please give example of program outcomes, course outcomes. I'm coming to that, sir. Uh, right. So I'll come to that very soon. The question to you: is there a well-proven reference to outcomes of higher education? Yes, it is there. Essentially, it is called as graduate attributes. By the way, now probably most of the registrants have joined, and there are almost like 300 plus right now attendees here. I have seen in the registration log that many registrations are from Symbiosis Pune, even from the Medical College of Symbiosis, EC5, ICT, some many institutions across the country have shown interest in joining today's webinar. I welcome all of you and thank you very much for your valuable time. And I hope to interact with you also even after this webinar. If you have any questions or suggestions for my webinars to improve further, please feel free to share your thoughts also on this. Um, so essentially, now I'm going ahead now. So I'm coming now to quality assurance of quality curriculum design process. So we what we have done so far is that we've discussed about the quality assurance, how the concept of quality assurance started becoming applicable to higher education. We have looked at the products of higher education. We have discussed the process behind or around those products. And my idea here is that if you focus on your processes that produce those products, then you can ensure the right reflection or the desired reflections can be seen on the minds of the students. And these reflections, if you try to quantify what those are, identify, classify those reflections that you are seeing on the minds of the students, you are actually talking about talking about the program outcomes. So those are the program outcomes. Those could be then, those will have to be measured consistently, because if you don't measure anything, there is no possibility of improving anything. Peter Drucker, right? So if you have to measure that, and that's why you have to have some kind of methodology to measure those outcomes qualitatively or quantitatively, objectively or subjectively, and then make some sense out of it. That can be a feedback to your process, and you can continuously improve the process around those products which you are going to use to deliver your higher education to the students. Then we looked at the impacts on the higher education process, why there is a need of becoming dynamic in our processes, and how to rapidly uh, design, develop, revise our programs to make those current with the outside world. Why it is going to be much more and more important in the years to come is something that we debated. And then we are moving towards now the curriculum design process itself. So obviously the journey to the curriculum design starts at the program outcomes designing. So we have talked about the kind of idea of what the program outcomes could be, right? We have got that idea. Now we will start identifying what those program outcomes could be. Now here I would like you to think about yourself as a program designer, um, or who somebody who has been asked to revise the program which is existing. And in both the cases, these ideas will be useful for you. So you will have to start by looking at what are the right references for me to think about uh, how to kind of classify those reflections on the student's mind and consider those as the outcome of my program. So are there any ready-made references, right? Those we will have to look at first. And then we will start looking at the curriculum designing. We will look at the program outcomes and sorry, course outcomes designing, uh, assessment designing, and then essentially I will not be able to cover the point number 4 and 5 here, but at least in the time that is remaining in the session, I'll try to cover the um, at least the framework for course outcomes designing. So we'll look at how you can use various ready-made references to design your program outcomes and the program specific outcomes. These are the first two important points we'll cover, and then followed by that, we will create a model for curriculum design, and that will establish a pathway to questions in the course outcomes design. So There are ready-made references which are called as graduate attributes. Those are defined by various thought leaders or researchers in the field of higher education, some statutory bodies, some of there are many accreditations that have also defined these graduate attributes in their manuals. And those are accepted globally as a set of attributes which could be considered for designing a program. So these are our references. If you are a teacher in performing arts, these could be your graduate attributes, right? Continuous learning, artistic skills. But artistic skills are not useful in other programs. So for other programs, they may not directly use, I mean, they may not find this list complete for their program. So they might use some other graduate attributes taxonomy like this. This is generally used by many academic and professional programs. UGC also has used it, and AICT also has used it in our country. If you are a teacher in management program, these could be your graduate attributes you can use as to start defining your program outcomes. Um, and if you are a teacher in medical education, this could be the references interestable professional activities, and this could lead to designing the outcomes to be achieved by Indian medical graduates. And in fact, this is a well known and well accepted taxonomy of entrustable professional activities in the field of medical education. So these are various references that come in picture when you begin your thought process of designing program outcomes. Now, the first important concept that comes in picture is knowledge dimensions. When you start classifying your reflections that you want to see on the student's mind. So these reflections or the program outcomes are divided into three major categories. And these categories are related with the knowledge dimensions: factual, conceptual, procedural, and metacognitive. So you will always find these three categories, knowledge, skill, and attitude, used in classifying the graduate attributes. And these three classifications have direct relationship with the knowledge dimensions. Uh, Here it is, right? So the disciplinary knowledge is typically is a factual and conceptual knowledge, which can be delivered in the classroom. The skills are related to procedural knowledge, how to do the things, right? And why to do the things. And in attitude is not a general attitude of a person; it is attitude towards learning, and this attitude towards learning has to be developed. And for that, there are certain attributes which fall into the category of attitude, which can be delivered by developing the metacognitive knowledge. It is about when to do the things, strategy, learn, knowing about themselves, their own learning styles, knowing, I mean, ability to self evaluate, identify their reflections, and that is how the attitude towards learning can be developed, as the experts say. And that falls into these learning domains: cognitive domain, psychomotor domain, and affective domain. I'm going to use these terms interchangeably many times, but essentially I'm focusing on my delivery of the session is focused on knowledge dimensions: factual, conceptual, procedural, metacognitive. Sometimes mistakenly or inadvertently I may use cognitive, psychomotor, affective domains also in my delivery of this session, but essentially I mean that I want to kind of continuously hang on the central idea of knowledge dimensions all the time. To explain what these knowledge dimensions are, I'm going to use these slides. So essentially, factual knowledge refers to information and the data that can be objectively verified. It is typically based on established facts. It involves knowledge about some specific details, names, dates, events, or other concrete pieces of information. These are all facts, right? Conceptual knowledge is kind of these involves understanding abstract ideas, principles, theories, relationships between the different concepts. It goes beyond mere the facts and focuses on the comprehension of underlying concepts and their interconnections. I'll explain this little further. Procedural knowledge relates to knowing how to perform the tasks, activities, and the processes. It encompasses the practical skills, steps, strategies required to carry out specific actions effectively. And metacognitive knowledge refers to awareness and understanding of one's own cognitive process. So how I learn, I must know this is the best way for me to learn something new or master something. What I should do, how many practice questions I should solve, for example, to prepare for an examination. Right, what should be kept on the option, or what should be given higher amount of time to study, what is going to be more difficult for me, right? This is the kind of, I have understanding of my own cognitive abilities, and I'm preparing for myself for an upcoming examination or a competition based on my own judgments about my own style of learning. So that is what is metacognitive knowledge is. So the first box here on your left is factual knowledge. These are all facts lying here and there. Right? The moment you start identifying the relationship between them, it forms a concept. Right? And then when you start knowing about how to go from point A to point B, it becomes your procedural knowledge. Right? And when it comes to metacognitive knowledge, it has got two kind of distinctive domains. One is knowledge of the cognition, and second is regulation of the knowledge. So, knowledge of the cognition, if I would pick the same example which I was quoting earlier, if I'm preparing for an examination, I know about how what could be the challenges that I'm going to face. Now I have learned how to overcome those challenges, and then based on that, in the next examination, I'm going to regulate that experience such a way that the challenges by are now kind of easily conquered by me, and that is the regulation of knowledge. So I'm learning something from my previous experience. I'm using revised strategies of studying something, and then that is called can be called as regulation of my own knowledge of my own cognitive process, right? So this is how I will learn better than uh, previously, and that this understanding is growing, and that is what can be called as regulation. So knowledge of the cognition typically refers to an individual's understanding or awareness of cognitive process, which are the mental activities involved in thinking, learning, problem solving, and essentially the this skill can be uh, uh, taught to the students such a way that I mean you don't have to have really a course dedicated to teaching metacognitive skills. It can be delivered through any course. It need not be kind of technical course. It could be any theoretical course also. These metacognitive skills could be taught. Um, Educators may use this knowledge to design effective teaching methods and strategies that align with how students learn and think. So if you read the exam grades or any other behavioral patterns that you find, if you take that as a feedback and improve your own teaching methods and the strategies, then naturally the impact of that will be better on the students. The learners can benefit from understanding their cognitive processes to enhance their study techniques, problem solving skills, and overall learning outcomes as well. So these strategies help both teachers and the students also. And when it comes to regulation, it is a process by which individuals monitor control and manage their own cognitive process. It involves being aware of one's thinking, learning strategies, and problem solving approaches, and then making deliberate efforts to enhance and optimize these processes. So, again, you may recall the example which I quoted, that is about preparing for an exam and then use that experience to prepare for next exam. So these are the four knowledge dimensions that have to come in picture when you think about uh, classifying, quantifying those reflections on the student's mind, and then use that as your program outcomes, because that is the kind of imprint, footprint, or the reflections you want to leave on the minds of the students when they complete the graduation process. And you are kind of monitoring and measuring those reflections, and trying to identify what those reflections are, what those reflections could be called as, and that is the set that you will write down, which can be called as program outcomes. So that is nothing but the process of defining the program outcomes. If you are an autonomous institute and or an university, you have all the rights and authority to write your own program outcomes. You don't have to really take into account the ready-made program outcomes defined by somebody. You have to be very confident about writing down your own program outcomes for your programs, and nobody should challenge it and should be able to challenge it. There has to be proper reasoning behind it, and all the documentation about why you think that these are the right program outcomes for my students to achieve. Now, what happens is that the graduate attributes which are defined for performing arts or medical graduates or engineering and academic programs, right? Professional or academic programs, management programs, so on and so forth. Those are primarily are the standard taxonomies. They give you a quick start. However, you may still think that they still do not address my program specific variations or the nuances or the specifics, and hence you may want to kind of think about what those program specific outcomes are, which are not covered by these standard taxonomies, and hence you will pick something that is kind of anyway applicable from the list of attributes here, which I am right now doing. I'm for a program. You will find that these 5 to 6 or 7 attributes are anyway applicable to any higher education process. There has to be some communication skills could be important, critical thinking, analytical reasoning, cooperation, teamwork, moral, ethical awareness, lifelong. These are all commonly applicable attributes anyway required, but the program specific ones have to be then defined. So what could be those, right? Naturally, uh, depending upon what uh, knowledge you are going to deliver through this program, you will have to identify those, and that is the responsibility of the program designer to identify what these specific program outcomes are. Examples are here, PSOs for zoology and PSOs for economics program. I've taken it from NAC manual, and you'll find that they have given the sample program outcomes, which I am highlighting here. And you'll find that those are directly coming from graduate attribute list. Critical thinking, effective communication, these come from the skill category of the graduate attributes. Social interaction, effective citizenship, or ethics, these attributes are coming from the attitude category of graduate attributes. Again, there are further environment and sustainability, self-directed, and lifelong learning. These also come from attitude. Now, they have also given sample PSOs for BSc Zoology, and you can find that two of them fall into knowledge category and two into skill category. So, if you look at these outcomes, they cannot be the program. They cannot be the outcome of other than zoology program, right? These are very specific to zoology. Take example of the fourth PSO written here. Analyze the relationship among the animal, plants, and microbes. This is not applicable to economics. Economics will have its own set of program specific outcomes. The earlier zoology outcome is not applicable to this, right? So that is why these are called as specific program outcomes. So if you mix this list of attributes taken from the graduate attributes list and outcomes defined by you as program specific outcomes, then it will give you a complete set of outcomes at the program level. So essentially, this is how the designing of the program outcomes has to be done. Some come from your standard taxonomies, and some will have to be defined as per the proposed curriculum, and that gives you a complete set of program outcomes. So once you do this, you don't. There is no reason for you to actually keep identifying those as POs and the PSOs and get confused with that, whether or there has to be a separate measurement to be done for PSOs and all. Those are all, these kind of questions occur out of confusions and misconceptions about what is PO and what is PSO. Those are identified as POs and PSOs for the purpose of informing that these are the set of PSOs which are defined specifically for this program and nothing more than that. Once you do that, from the perspective of the students, they don't care whether you call those as PSOs or PSOs. For them, those are reflections. For those are attributes to be achieved by them by end of the program, right? So likewise, as a teacher, um, there is no need of looking at those as something different than what POs are, right? POs and POs are nothing but the set of outcomes to be achieved by the students, and those have to be then taken as a reference to your uh, curriculum designing. So now this question to you: which category of the POs is more important, knowledge, skill, or attitude? There are a few other questions which I'm going to read and try to answer. Professor Reddy asks, how to train teachers to impart these skills to the students? Yes, uh, this question is good. However, not related to my topic of my session, so I'll skip that. Other question by same teacher is, at what level research-based learning should be introduced in Indian universities? It is already introduced. It is already become mandatory, right? By virtue of teachers being asked to do the PhD, that is already happening. Dr. Ashok Kumar is asking, explain what is the psychological significance of OBE. Actually, that is exactly what I am trying to convey. Metacognitive skills is nothing but the psychological preparation of the student's attitude towards learning. And then the OBE is OBE is one of the tools for you to improve your processes. It is one of the quality assurance tools. So the tools for quality assurance I mentioned, right? That there could be frameworks, there could be rubrics, there could be methodology. So OBE is one of your methodology of improving or implementing the quality assurance practices in your institution. So it has got obviously psychological benefits to everyone in the organization, not only students. That's how I could answer this question at the moment. Um, Now to answer to my question, which is on the screen right now, Dr. Manoj Kumar says all are important. Professor Vasagan says skill and knowledge is important. Professor Annapurna says all the three are important. But essentially, absolutely right. The most important here is attitude towards learning. If the attitude is built, their knowledge and then subsequently the skill will improve. So if you have to stack rank this, attitude comes first, then the knowledge, and then the skills. Skill is essentially is a byproduct of knowledge that the students will have, but there has to be an attitude towards improving their skill over a period of time. If they're satisfied that okay, I can do it now, that is fine, I don't have to do further, then that's not the attitude that you expect them to have. You want them to improve the competency in the area of the skills, and then if they have the right attitude, they will try to improve their competency in those skills, right? So that is why attitude is important. And it is worldwide, it is now accepted fact that many researchers in the field of higher education are writing many research papers these days. You will find that a lot of emphasis is being given to metacognitive skills, and this is the reason behind it. So now we have kind of defined our program outcomes. Now we will begin the process of curriculum designing. Courses come first, then course outcomes, then assessments, and then questions. Assessment is the type of assessment. It could be formative, summative. Within the formative, there could be labs, practicals, right? Some kind of outside of the classroom experience. Summative is a kind of your term and exam. There could be so these are the type of it, direct, indirect. There are types of assessments, and then each one of those assessments will have some questions defined there, or some kind of problem statement is given, or some kind of project is is defined, and the students have to work on that, or some kind of hackathon is being planned by you. So all those kind of assessments could be designed, and then questions could be designed accordingly. So if a program outcome is in the knowledge category, naturally influence of that program will be there on the courses that you will design for that. If there is a course that is to be fulfilling the requirements of a program outcome in the skill category also, then this container of a course will have mixed content, something related to the knowledge category, and something related to the skill category of the program outcome. So based on that, the inheritance of the properties of the program outcome will be taken up by the courses, and accordingly you will have to design the content. Accordingly you have to assess the students whether they have achieved the desired level of skills, and desired knowledge is being kind of taken by them through your interactions with them. And accordingly you will have to design the questions uh, to assess the success of the students. And that is when the cognitive uh, scale comes in picture. That is nothing but Bloom's taxonomy level, as commonly known, but it is nothing but the cognitive process. So there are two parallel dimensions that we are talking about here. One is the knowledge dimension, other is the cognitive process. So one is teaching, knowledge is teaching, and learning is cognitive process. So these are two parallel processes that come in picture when you design your curriculum. So if you look at the web of relationship between a PO and the courses, there could be one to many, many to many kind of relationship between the courses and the program outcomes, and then subsequently to the course outcomes and the questions related to those course outcomes. Um, so if you kind of create a blueprint for your program, it could be your new program or old program. Let's say this is 8 semester program, and each semester, let's say average 5 courses are being taught, and you have a pool of content here suggested by industry stakeholders, some kind of parents, students, or other experts from the field of higher education. And these stakeholders tell you that you should teach these things to the students. If you are designing a program, or if you are revising your program, ensure that these courses are added in your program. So you have a pool of your the content to be delivered to the students, and based on the program outcomes over here, you'll have to think about what is the right content that you should use here, pick and associate with the program outcome. So it's a top down process. You have to first of all think about the program outcomes, and then pick the relevant content so that the students will achieve these program outcomes. These program in yellow, outcomes in yellow, are related to knowledge category. That means it is factual and conceptual knowledge. Likewise, skill, procedural knowledge, metacognitive, and attitude. So over a period of time, naturally, as the students graduate from one semester to the next semester, you will start adding more complexity in your courses. It's not only the courses content that you deliver to make it complex or advanced. It is basically it becomes advanced or it becomes complex, by designing the kind of learning experiences for them. So it could be a kind of assessment or the kind of case study given, or it could be for medical students, they have to now perform, so they have to be posted in the hospitals for which is called as clinical posting. They have to observe the operations being done by the experienced doctors and then learn from that probably. So and then or they have to go and use the mannequins, the artificial body, to perform the operation and show how they're applying their skills there. So that's how the learning experiences will be built based on what is taught in the classroom, which is disciplinary knowledge, which is factual and conceptual knowledge. Now, skill development can happen by exposing them to the other learning experiences than the classroom learning experience. So that is what is being added by you here. Over a period of time, you are adding collaborative work. You are introducing project activities where they have to creatively think about the solution. They have to think critically. They have to communicate with others. They have to become a team player. They have to understand that they are not able to communicate. They have to understand that they are not able to cope up with others. There are some personality issues. There could be internships, so they are exposed to the outside world also. They learn what happens in the corporate world, and these are the experiences that you develop there, and that gives them a better reflection about their own abilities as a student, and that probably can help them to build that kind of attitude towards learning. And so their learning experiences become more and more complex over a period of time, and hence the more and more metacognitive skills can be covered up using your own existing courses by delivering the initially the discipline knowledge, but then incrementally you will also have to add the discipline knowledge also in each course probably. And that is why I have given the shade of yellow. I've continued showing it there because you always teach them some kind of incremental disciplinary knowledge, which is factual and conceptual knowledge, but which is an advanced level knowledge. And that is good enough for them to take care of the remaining course in that being taught at that level. Now, once you kind of come up with this your blueprint, now you want to test your design. So you can just mark these, create a metric like this, and on the x-axis you can put your courses here. On y-axis you can put your program outcomes and see how many courses are being kind of used by you in your design to deliver the requirements of certain program outcomes. Certain in the sense all the program outcomes. So you will realize that if there are the three categories of the PO, and if these are the courses, here you will find that probably there is one program outcome 5 for which there is a content being delivered through these 5 courses. Now, is this kind of a deliberately done, or is it a mistake by you during your designing? Are you giving unnecessary importance to PO5, or it is really important from the perspective of the reflections that you want to ensure? Because you may believe that PO5 is most critical uh, outcome to be achieved by the students. So out of, let's say, 60 or 120 or 300 students who are there in that batch learning your program, most of the students, let's say 60% students, should be achieving the highest degree of proficiency in related to program outcome number 5. So you want this to be kind of taught, covered properly, and that's why there are 5 courses there. But it may be a mistake also, so you may have to normalize it, give more time to other program outcomes, and balance it out. But if it is to be really critically taught, then naturally there will have to be more activities, more experiences, learning experiences that will have to be created for the students. So that is how the curriculum designing process will begin, right? Based on which PO is more critical. Now, I'll also give one more example here. Critical thinking itself or the communication skill is important for all the programs of any discipline, but relatively, you may agree or disagree with me, but relatively, for the students of law, the the communication and critical thinking is far more important than some other courses. I'm sorry, some other programs. Everywhere it is important, but it is more important in law, in the law probably, because they have to fight a case. They have to stand in front of a judge and then kind of defend their client. And then naturally, they have to be very good communicator. They have to critically think about how to defend this client, and that's why if it is a law course program, then there will have to be higher importance given to the certain program outcomes, but it will not be so there is a cost to it, right? We will be spending more time, more resources on that, but that may not be required in some other programs, and some other program outcomes will be more important. So you'll reduce the time taken by critical thinking program outcome and give more time to other program outcomes, right? So that is the kind of balancing has to be done for curriculum designing. Let me see whether there are any questions in the meantime. Professor Chitra is asking, please show with example complete course. I'm coming to that, but you remember that this is 75 minutes session. I do these things in detail when I deliver a full FDP at institutions. Another question by Professor Chitra is, please explain difference between the program and course. Suppose it's BBA. BBA is a program, and the courses could be, I don't know what courses BBA has. Maybe you have a communication skill, that is a course. Yeah, so I know why you're asking this question, because traditionally we call course as a, ये course करना है, वो course करना है मुझे. So this terminology has to be changed, because globally BBA like undergraduation process is called as a program, and courses which you taught in the same in your terms are courses, which are called as subjects in traditional language. So course and the subject is the terminology traditionally used, which has to be changed to program and a course. So subject becomes a course and a course becomes a program, right? That is the way to define it. All right, so there are no more questions here. Now we will come to the cognitive process. So far we were talking about teaching and teaching. Now let's talk about learning process. The other side of the table are the students, and let's see how they learn. So research and theory in cognitive science have shown that human cognition can be analyzed into cognitive processes, and these cognitive processes are typically well known and famous as Bloom's taxonomy levels, because not Dr. Benjamin Bloom and his team members did the research long back, and they came up with some taxonomy of cognitive process, which begins at remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. There are 6 steps defined by them. Over a bit of time, some changes happen in that, and now the taxonomy or the process, cognitive process, which I am showing you on my screen, is the current one. It is called as revised Bloom's taxonomy. But what it is actually highlighting or addressing is cognitive process. So teachers teach knowledge and students learn that knowledge. So their learning will happen through these steps typically. And when somebody is able to remember something, it means that they are able to exhibit the memory of previously learned material by recalling it. facts, terms, basic concepts, and answers. Uh, Understanding means demonstrating understanding of facts and ideas by organizing or comparing. Application means solving the problem to new situations. So, if I know how Wi-Fi connection has to be set on iPhone, and if I use that experience to set the Wi-Fi connection on my Android phone, so it is using that, applying that knowledge into a new situation. Analysis is essentially examining and breaking the information in parts by identifying motives and the causes. So if I am given various handsets of the iPhone has multiple sets, I mean the versions, Android has multiple versions, and kind of there are many various manufacturers. So if I would kind of analyze how long did it take for me to identify where the Wi-Fi connection is, and how long did it take to set that correctly, that could be an analysis. So present, and then evaluating is presenting and defending the opinions by making the judgments about information. So I can say that Nokia is the best iPhone, smartphone, user friendly, and based on why, what facts I'm saying this is something that I should be able to defend. And then compiling information together in different way. So if I would have suggestions about to Nokia, then you can improve this further, or those who are at two, second and third or fourth level in my analysis, if I would share some ideas with them, that could be kind of create level experience the students will have, because they are kind of improving some process, suggesting the ways to improve it, which will take lesser time for users to set something or use their smartphone effectively, more effectively than before. That is creating something new. It doesn't have to be, the students don't have to be Einsteins. A small creation of knowledge is also good enough display of achieving the level of creation. So when you look at this picture, what do you think about it? It is essentially, if she is able to remember something, she is exhibiting the memory of previously learned material, recalling facts, terms, basic concepts, right? Now, what does this picture display? This student is able to demonstrate something, some idea, or by organizing or comparing this with that. Uh, this is application, solving the problems to new but familiar situations. Familiar is important here, by applying acquired knowledge and facts and techniques. If they are able to apply this in unfamiliar situation, then it means that they are going upwards in the level of competency. I'm coming to that little later. It's a very interesting concept. And analysis, we have seen the example of that already. And evaluation is basically identify the pros and cons, suggestions, advantages and disadvantages of, and then presenting that in a way in which others will be able to read that correctly. And creating is something, it's comparing the information together in different way, by combining the elements in a new pattern or proposing alternative solutions. We have used the example of mobile phones here. Now, if you look at these levels of cognitive process, essentially, remember related questions, right? Could be where, when, who, what. If you draft your questions, or if as a teach student or a teacher, if I ask myself these questions, then essentially I'm recalling something from my memory, right? Where, when, specific time, probably, who, name, what, some kind of fact, right? Understand why, how, why you are going to do this, how will you do that, or how am I going to do this, why will I do this, apply, how it is used, how does it work. Essentially, these are the kind of questions one will ask. Analysis, why it is used, why does it work, why doesn't it work, What is the cause? What is the reason? What does it infer? What does it suggest? When it comes to evaluation, the kind of questions one will ask are what is the effect? What is the impact? What is the result? What if this happens? What would happen if you do this? What could happen if you don't do this? And create could be what can you design? How would you develop it? What can you plan? What could you produce? How can you innovate? What can you invent? So if you look at now these categories, the first two levels are teacher led. A teacher will have to ensure that they are able to remember something, they are able to understand something. Once that happens, it establishes a very strong foundation. And then many things become student centric. They have to apply, they have to analyze, they have to evaluate, they have to create. So knowledge is delivered and delivered to a level to the teachers, students by the teachers, and then teachers' role is to help them build that strong foundation and then design activities such a way that it becomes a student centric work later on, application of that, analysis, evaluating, creating. These are all student centric, right? This is how you can look at it. Now, that was about the cognitive process, which was related to the knowledge domain. There are other such taxonomies for psychomotor and affective domain also. Many researchers have come up with these taxonomies, right? This is an example of that, and I'm going to quickly show you with the help of pictures. Now, in this case, this teacher is showing the students, how to perform the steps of the dance here. So there is a students are imitating or following what the teacher is doing here, right? Now, in this case, this is called as imitation. In this case, these students are shown a picture and they are supposed to follow these steps. Now, without or less supervision by the teacher here. So it's essentially this stage is called as manipulation. The third is kind of, now there is no teacher in front of the students. There is no picture also. The students are able to perform it themselves. This is called as precision. The two steps involved in this picture. One is articulation and naturalization. So here, the articulation is high level of proficiency is necessary. So even in the case of precision, they can actually go in their competency up. They probably they were making let's say two mistakes in 1 minute's dance performance, let's say average, and now over a period of time they have reduced it to let's say 1 or 0, and even if they dance for 5 minutes there are no mistakes in that. That's the level of precision they are achieving, which is called as articulation. And when it comes to naturalization, what happens is that now look at this left side dancer and the right side dancer, this dancer and this dancer, they are kind of mirroring each other. So this is very kind of natural to them, essentially, that this performer knows that she has to look the other side and use her right side hand to show this position or this show this mudra, and she knows that she has to use left hand to show this mudra, and that is how it will be synchronized. So she is not only a better performers, but they also know what is needed when, and they have to change their performance accordingly, and that is called as natural. It comes very natural to them. They know, they don't have to told this, right? They know what, how to do it, what is needed, what is expected when they have to form a dance like this, right? That is what is naturalization is. And these are the levels of psychomotor domain. Now attitude is about learning attitude, right? um, when it starts as receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and internalizing. These are the levels here. Right now, see, because of the way we are communicating with each other, you are into receiving mode. Now, that is again, whenever I'm, sometimes I'm putting those slides in between. Do you have any questions, right? I'm encouraging you to write your questions. So again, this is kind of, taken as external motivation, which is and you are into receiving mode right now. But if you are kind of responding, raising your hand or asking the question, you are kind of responding to what you are receiving. This is your learning attitude. You are receiving, you are actively listening, is your attitude towards learning as a learner. If you are responding to something, it is again, if it is being triggered by the teacher, hey, do you have any question, um, please ask those, is again an external motivation many times. So that, but it can be called as responding. Those who respond to that, they are into responding phase of the learning attitude. Now when your learning attitude develops further as a student, it becomes your internal motivation. And internal motivation gets triggered when they start valuing their own process of learning. They start enjoying it. If they solve some difficult problem, obviously anybody enjoys that moment. They feel, they start respecting themselves, right? That is a stage at which the internal motivation starts triggering in. Then students start becoming more organized in the way they learn. They will not bunk the lectures. They will come on time. They will obey all the rules of the institutions, right? And they have their own value system also. That is also getting formed over a period of time. I will never, use the copy to solve some kind of questions. That's their own value system. And it becomes very natural. I mean, even the external influences don't impact their spirit. It That means that it is kind of, they have completely internalized their value system. And you notice this, there are many such students there, right? Who have their own value system. They don't buckle down, and they have their own ways of living life. And that it could be, it may not be always good. uh, I mean, resulting into good, socially accepted kind of norms. But still, those who are not there, they also have their own value system there, right? They don't believe in certain things, right? That's their value system. So but it gets kind of built over a period of time, right? As a learner. Now in the field of medical education, they use this pyramid of called which is called as Miller's pyramid. Knows how, shows how and how. And then sometimes they also use perform. So these are the 4 or 5 levels of cognitive processes they in the field of medical education is used. So all the fields of education use their own way of cognitive process. So distinctively, I found that medical field uses little different process, and rest of the higher education uses the Bloom's taxonomy, which is nothing but a cognitive process. This is ancient Indian philosophy about it. Now think of an assessment for the learners which will cover all the domains of the learning: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. if you could think about an assessment which can cover all the three domains. There is, in the meantime, I'll answer a question by Professor Reddy. Is the idea of this process for continuous improvement of course and program outcomes? Uh, in a way, yes, not entirely. This process will give you the feedback about whether you have correctly defined your course outcomes or you have correctly defined your program outcomes. But this is much, it encompasses much more critical things about the curriculum designing. For example, you are continuously finding over a period last three batches, you have found that certain program outcomes are not kind of achieved by the students, regardless of what their uh, abilities are. So what does it indicate? It doesn't indicate that the teachers are not doing good job. It doesn't indicate that the students are not taking efforts. There has to be something else. It could be an equipment in your lab which is outdated, or you are not giving enough time for the students to practice on something. So your instructional methods have to change, or your institution has to invest into some resources which are much more modern, right? Or you are finding that your students are not able to kind of get the jobs in certain industry, but other institutions are students are more or equally the same according to you. Their students are taking those jobs. Why? There has to be something that has to change, and that is also a part of continuous improvement. So my process definition is not just specific to course and the program outcomes. It is much more than that. Professor Trupti has mentioned here that OSPI can have all the three. OSPI can have all the observed, structure, practical exam. Thank you very much, ma'am. I will use this example in my sessions to follow. Thanks a lot for that insight. Um, yeah, so let me show you what this kind of exam, assessment could be, in which all the three domains can be covered. So an assessment which will ask learners to provide a solution to a major problem caused by immigration to metropolis. So from the small cities, tier 4, tier 5 cities, people are migrating to metropolis, right? And they obviously they face some challenges. And so this problem is to uh, provide a solution to major problem caused by immigration to metropolis, and it can then use set of concepts, principles, methods, or surveys while solving the problems. So to propose a solution and to using concepts, principles, and methods, for it is a cognitive activity. So if you are solving the problem, trying to build a solution, you have to use some kind of concepts, principles, models, methods, and so that becomes a conceptual knowledge, right? And hence it is a cognitive activity. Preparing a survey and delivering it, getting appointments from the relevant people, interviewing them, concentrating an issue is a learned psychomotor behavior. It is a skill, right? Interviewing people, reaching out to them, getting the appointments. It is all about psychomotor behavior. Feeling happy when proposing a well solution to the problem. Students will enjoy that moment. They will enjoy cooperating with the friends, adopting this attitude. Arey mujhe to ye aa gaya. I have learnt it. Or feeling uneasy or unhappy when one cannot dissolve the problem, falls into affective domains. They even start feeling unhappy about it. They will get embarrassed, and embarrassment, creating that embarrassment situation itself is the biggest achievement of this assignment. because it is not only creating that kind of happy kind of feeling. It is equally important to that certain students become unhappy, uneasy, they feel uneasy, and that itself is a success of this assignment. And because that is why such activities are designed. So students should not be penalized for that. You should not cut down their marks because they could not come out with the solution correctly or completely. uh, if you find that they are not happy with themselves, right, they've fallen short of it, their expectations, that itself is a achievement of this. And that is the purpose of creating such assignments, and that is what is called as metacognitive skills delivery, because they will realize that something they could not do it, right, and that itself is a success of this. Now when it comes to um, curriculum, right, we will now go ahead with our session. I don't know how much time we have. We actually are run out of time already. So it's already 4:30. Let me quickly cover this. So psychomotor activities and attitude of learning helps in better cognition. So cognitive domain is at the center. Psychomotor domain and affective domain drive the learning process. And internal and external motivation. External motivation gear is smaller. We will have to push the students to internal motivation, and that becomes a bigger gear to drive the attitude of learning, and that helps the students to learn. Like psychomotor domain means you are designing the activities, learning experiences, which will improve their learning, right? They will keep going upwards from apply to analyze, analyze to evaluate, evaluate to create, if these two wheels are constantly driving this process. That is the idea here. Now we know that's how the program outcomes were defined. Now let's pick one program outcome. This is extremely important part of this whole webinar. Allow me to spend another 10 minutes on this, and then we can conclude. So we'll pick one program outcome and zoom into that. We have to now think about that if it was PO of, let's say, knowledge of management principles or engineering knowledge, basic level. So this is at maybe at early level of skill or only the knowledge area of the program outcome, right? Discipline knowledge is being delivered, or just a simple application of engineering knowledge is expected here, not too much. Let's say this is a program outcome like this. So now you have to think about what is the level of cognition the student should achieve, and what kind of psychomotor activities you will have to design to help them achieve these cognitive levels, and what could be the learning attitude that you want to see there. These are the three different questions you have to ask to think about what should be the curriculum that you have to design to achieve this PO. So you may have to take these calls that, okay, I want to take the students to apply level. I want them to also reach some precision level in their application. So application precision, I gave the example that in 1 minute dance, the students are, learners are, or the dancers are making two mistakes. That is fine. The tolerance is given. And that is okay to you, right? And you want them to also kind of value certain rules, build that kind of attitude up to the level of valuing. So this is how you will, first of all, I want students to achieve these levels, and then only I can say that this PO is achieved by them. Another example could be analytical problem solving skill. This has to have much higher level of cognition, and problem analysis is another example here. So naturally, you will have to go one level up here. Otherwise, this program outcome cannot be achieved. Here in this case, you may still want to be at precision level, and here in this case you still want to be at valuing level, but your cognitive level is gone up here, and accordingly you have to design those learning experiences and learning attitude towards it. Now critical thinking, I gave this example earlier, right? For the students of law, the critical thinking may be more important, but for others it may not be that important. So this is how you will have to design, think about where you want to take the students to for each program outcome, and a spectrum like this will emerge for all the program outcomes. Here for your program, where do you want your students to be at, right? And these two POs, PO5, PO8, PSO1, and also PSO2 and PSO6 are very important in my opinion, according to the spectrum that you are defined. For some other program, this spectrum could look like this, right? And now, once you are ready with your first blueprint, or this could be your template also, right? Then you can zoom into each program outcome further. Let's say you have this program outcome. Now you have to now start designing your curriculum based on this. So you have to then make sure that you have enough number of courses. So factual and conceptual knowledge is delivered. You have to design those learning experiences inside and outside of the classroom, and you have to also help them build a learning attitude. Now this requirement of a PO, in this case PO6, uh, there could be multiple courses, there could be multiple activities which will have to be defined. Enough time has to be allocated, and you have to balance out the overall time the program has to take. So based on these trade-offs, you will come out with essentially what knowledge you have to deliver, what cognitive levels they have to achieve, and what psychomotor and affective domain level they have to achieve. So step by step here, you will have to create a decision table like this, which will tell you exactly that if whenever I am delivering factual and conceptual knowledge, I want students to be at, let's say, these remember and understand level. So certain part of the content I will leave it to them at remember level, but certain point of content I must see them at understand level. When I want certain part of the content to be taken to analysis level, and they should reach a precision level, they should reach responding and valuing, for example. And then you will come out with your final decision table. So this is how it is. So you will deliver your discipline knowledge. These are the desired cognitive levels you have defined. And now this becomes your template, which you can give to the course designers. So they have to think about how many courses will have to be designed, what activities have to be designed, what case studies have to be designed, and what kind of self reflections they have to students have to submit, or it could be group discussions or some kind of role playing you have to plan, through which they will achieve these metacognitive skills. So that's how you believe that this PO could be delivered. So now um, this is the table that we is going to be the guideline for us. So you will say that, okay, I will have two courses, and I will have these assessment tools. There will be quizzes, written exams, activities, case studies, group discussions. I will have some questions in that. So some questions, this could be MCQs, this could be one line question, one line answer, or I mean short essay or long essay. These are the case studies. So naturally they are more subjective in nature, and there could be group discussion on some kind of controversial point. And you believe that I will not be able to deliver this whole requirement within these two through these courses. I may have to use some other courses of the same program to deliver the required knowledge and build the skills. So it's not only the courses which are dedicatedly designed for critical thinking, but some other courses also are driving critical thinking, right? Try to you identify what other courses are also triggering the critical thinking abilities or requires abilities of critical thinking, and I'll use that also to measure the success of my PO6 year, right? So that is how the curriculum designing begins. So I think I covered as much as possible in this webinar. It's now over, I mean, we are 15 minutes past desired end time. So I'll stop here. I know that I have not covered everything, but I believe that I have covered enough to trigger some thoughts at your end. Let me know whether you liked it, and in case we happen to meet again in next session or somewhere else in your campus during my full FDP, I'll be able to explain this further. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Sure, sir. I would love to coordinate in the future as well. Thank you very much for the kind words and the encouraging feedback. As soon as I end this webinar, you will receive an email in which there will be a feedback link, and also 1 hour, exactly 1 hour from the end point of the webinar, you will receive another email in which there will be a link to download your certificate. Thanks a lot. Bye bye. Take care.